Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to I Learned Why My Family Escaped Louisiana by NYTN. This is the third episode of the Finding Lola series. If you haven't seen my reactions to the first two episodes, be sure to go back and watch those before this one. So far, we've gotten a lot of story of Lola's past and a lot of the question marks there, as well as some of the information on her interactions with her husband's family and how they were basically rejected. So there's a lot of interesting things going on because we are going to find out, obviously, they escaped Louisiana, but one of the big questions in the last episode was, why is it that Lola was willing to stay in New York where there's no help, especially where the only people there are her husband's family who have completely rejected them, yet in Louisiana, supposedly, she would have family there. Not going to say much else, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump on into the reaction.
My Grammy Marion said that her mom would never go in the sun. Like, just would not go in the sun.
My mother either. Never. No way. She was very protective of going into the sun. So, you know, they knew. So to me, the things unseen. Faith like a rain must.
My mother had an album with all her relations down south, you know, and some of them were dark skinned. And I'd ask her about it, and she never would answer. Persons of color, they got hung in a tree.
Interesting that she had a book with all of those names, because I would think, at least in terms of cutting that side out of your life in a sense to then, you know, pass as white, which I think is what's been basically told here, but then to still hold on to a piece of that past and the connections to more people, I think that's great, honestly, especially because I imagine a lot of people don't have those types of things because typically someone wouldn't hold on to that because that's then proof of what they're trying to hide in a sense. So it's kind of interesting that she would have that, and I wonder if anyone in their family still has that or if that's something that's kind of been lost.
My sister Marion always insisted saying that she was French, you know. My mother was part African and part Indian.
Anything that could be a perceived weakness, people try to hide.
I don't think I'd hide that.
No. I think it's a Donnelly perspective.
Oh.
You know, I mean, just fill in the blank with whatever you feel uncomfortable with.
So, Marion did that, you know. Well, she was just following in her mother's footsteps, you know. In other words, if she got by with it all this time, then I will.
This didn't come out until my sister did like a family tree thing. I was at a golf outing with them. I was up in Albany, and we're having the lunch or whatever, the catered lunch. And I did my DNA. I'm 10% black. She goes, and she screams out in the place, "We're black!" I lost it.
And that my mother, she never wanted to be associated that she was actually part black.
Mulatto?
No.
I don't know. I know. Part black is mulatto.
I know. Something else.
Creole?
Like Creole.
Is that a thing?
That is something. She never be associated with she would be part Creole, but she was part Creole.
Oh, meet with the Louisiana family. So she got in touch with some of her relatives down in Louisiana? Presumably Lola's side.
Is Audrey Lee Hero. I grew up in Monroe.
Huh.
I wanted to go to Campty because somebody had passed away and I wanted to go with them. They were going. He said, no, he said, you can never go. Don't you ever go there. I was not allowed to go there. Nothing was ever told why and all. And so growing up, in the back of my mind, I'm going to Campty. I want to find out why I can't go. And so years later, as I got older, I did. I went, just to see. I didn't see anything because I didn't know what I was looking for then.
Huh. It sounds like something happened to the family if Lola's sister's descendants are talking about an incident.
You provided for me from seed to tree. My faith now can't be shaken.
I grew up in Campty. It was extremely hard. We were discriminated against. Back in the day, whenever I grew up, the schools in Campty, the old high school still stand in Campty, but it's been closed down for years. People of color, Black, Native American, Hispanic, any people of color were not allowed to go to school with the little white children up until the 60s. And then that changed. And it was up until then, we were not allowed to go to school with the little white children. We were taught mainly by the Catholic nuns. We didn't have school buses like they have this day and time. We had an old pickup truck with a homemade bed built on it. In the back of that old truck, the boys would, the girls would get to ride in the front. Travel down Campty Bayou Road all the way to Black Lake. Well, that's a dirt road. In the summertime, when it's hot and dry, you get in the back of this truck with this old homemade bed on it. Running down that road, it forms a suction and pull that dust right back up in there where you're sitting. And when you get to school, your hair is white, your brows are white, your shirt, you do this right here. And go on about your business.
It was hard on us, so they either tried to keep it hush-hush, and some were lighter skinned, and some, so the ones lighter skinned could get jobs, and also the parents didn't want them to talk about where they came from. But it was, they just all got treated different. And like Audrey told me that Papa's told her never to carry Audrey when she was little, never carry her down to Natchitoches. I think it was probably from his experience down there. And, I asked a lot of them because so many of them migrated to Columbia, which is about 30 miles from here, to Louisiana, to Monroe, Schwartz, and Bastrop, and Oak Grove.
They were mistreated. I think things were said. They weren't treated like they said as equals, in that aspect. It could have been the birth certificate, because I know some of my brothers had a problem with that. When the birth certificates were viewed on the race that had Black, and it bothered them very much so. And one of them went and had it changed. He had to go through some legal terms, but he had it changed and all. So that could have been it, because back then they were either other or Black, because most of the midwives, when they go in, they wouldn't know the colors because some of the people were darker than others. Mulatto was a lot down here. It was a mixture of races together, because it was just like New Orleans is a melting pot.
This is what took to get his birth certificate, was when we were running.
Interesting. I'm gonna go back. I feel like there's like kind of a, they both have kind of the same mouth shape, this relative and then the son of Lola right there. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but it's just like kind of that, not the same nose necessarily, but the same mouth.
Melting pot.
Yeah.
This is what took to get his birth certificate, was when we were running the business, and they're like, and we need their birth certificates too. And I was like, do we have Dad's birth certificate? And we had to order it from the county. So I remember like getting a copy of it, going like, oh my God. I was like, this is colored. That's not, 15-year-old me went, that's not even a thing. Like, what was that?
is Robert Caldwell, and I'm a citizen of the Choctaw Apache community of Ebarb. The Indio being native at that time within that system was a low rank, the, kind of black-white binary of the U.S. South. And so to be darker...
Let's go back to that census record. So we have the Pirot family. I guess maybe, is this Lola? I can't tell what the name says. I see Odelia, Hillary, Victoria, Alphonse Jr. Yeah, it looks like Lodiz. There was a name in the first episode that was mentioned about a few names that Lola had. So I wonder, that must be Lola.
A low rank.
Going back again. Okay, so Louisiana. So this must be the 1900 census, it looks like, based on what I know. Like right here, that 7 and 7 means that the couple had 7 children and all 7 were alive. 36, 34.
Black, white.
Yeah, it must be something in... Yeah, so 1900, so if that's Lola born 1910, 1890, excuse me. So, yeah, I think that
of the U.S.
that
South
must be Lola.
And so to be darker meant to be closer to black or African. There are stories in my family where the brown paper bag test was applied. I've mostly heard that from Creole of color communities around Natchitoches, but it also happened in Sabine Parish, where even within the same family, some people had to sit in the balcony in the movie theaters, which was the colored section, and the others were allowed to go to the white section. And so there are a lot of stories in my family about fear of being placed as black in a sort of de facto category, not having the rights that white people have. I heard my grandmother tell me that when she was young, her own family members would tell her, don't play in the sun too long. If you play in the sun too long, you'll get too dark. You're already very dark. So that was very real.
He was actually born in California. I mean, he grew up in California. He had black in him and Chinese and French and all the same kind of bunch of mixture. He said he was older than me, and he said he used to go to Natchitoches and sometimes spend with his grandfather down there. And he walked to the movie theater. And back then, because it was that way in Monroe when I was a kid, black people had to sit upstairs above. It was a different entrance. Even still downtown, one of those theaters in West Monroe. I tell my kids and everybody, this was the theater I went to for 50 cents when I was a kid. I said, you see this extra little doorway over here that's real skinny. Well, when you walked in the regular doors and where you bought your tickets, you would still tell the little skinny door, it's the back side of that ticket booth. And that's where the black people had to go up there. It wasn't that way in California. He said he sat there and watched the movie by himself. He was about 10, and he said he kept hearing people talk, and he looks black, but had green eyes, and his last name's Hongo, because that's part of the Chinese. And so he kept hearing noise, and he said he turned around and kept looking, and he finally looked up there, and he seen the black people sitting up there, and he said he looked around down where he was at and seen no way. He said he started getting nervous going, oh, I'm going to go to jail, and he said he slumped down in the seat, and he said I was scared to death. And so he said when he left the theater and he started walking home, he said, I was afraid the cops couldn't kill me. And here comes a cop down the road. It was just a coincidence, but being a kid. And he actually cut through a yard and came out on another block. When he came on another block, here comes a car again. And they weren't hunting him, but he said, they might as well have grabbed me because I felt like I was done.
She was just hiding it. She didn't want to be associated with it. I guess, when you're in the South and you're part black, you ain't got it easy, dude.
Grandma White never alluded to anything about her ancestry at all, really, other than she wanted to make sure that I knew that it was French.
The whole thing about it is, and as I was growing up, a lot of things I seen that didn't make any sense. And when I would ask my mother about it, she was like, wouldn't answer me, Picture of her and my father when they got married. And if you look at the wedding dress, you can see decorations of it from Indian heritage, you know. And when you look at the way the belt is around her waist, you know, it's different things like that, you know. And when I try to ask her questions and things like that, she used to always say, I'm French, you know, never saying that she was of any color, because they were afraid. They were afraid. Even coming in, up into New York, my mother was still afraid.
A particular guy, his name was Ozan Desidere. There's a lot of Desideres. I went to school with some Desidere. Probably this guy was their great-grandfather or something of that nature. Ozan Desidere tried to purchase his property. The government tried to send agents down, and Desidere would not sell his property. Probably they just didn't offer him very much for it. Even whatever they offered for it, he did not want to sell. So in return, they came back later on at a different time, at night time. That time, you know, they used torches. They didn't have flashlights and electricity. They called him out, come out on his front porch, and they said, come help us. There's a guy down the road they needed help with. So he believed what they were telling him. He said, hang on, let me light my torch. So he went in the house, lit his torch by the fireplace, and came back out on the front porch. The torch put him as a target in the dark. So they shot him down on his front porch and killed him, mainly because he would not sell his land. They feared that that same thing would happen to them. If they didn't sell their land, that they would be killed. So they denied being Native American so that they could stay there. They went into hiding in plain sight.
You provided for me from seed to tree. My faith now can be shaken.
All right. Another good episode. This one got a bit more in depth into things than just kind of interviewing everyone, which was nice, especially having that professor and then talking to relatives from Lola's family who were still in Louisiana. That was very interesting. Definitely saw some similarities, in my opinion, between the family members. The story about Ozan Desidere was very interesting as well, and I like that she included an image of a newspaper article about that. I wonder whatever happened with that. I'm assuming, you know, no one was ever brought to justice for it. One thing that I am still curious about with the whole story is whether or not Lola is African and Native American and European, or if she's just African and European. The reason for that is because they briefly mentioned the DNA in this episode, but it was only said that, you know, we're 10% black, but no mention about we have this percentage of Native American. So I'm wondering, was she Native American or was she European and African? There is only one episode left of this series, although there are a whole bunch of other videos on this channel, so I'm sure I'll react to more videos from this channel once I do finish this next episode. But I am looking forward to the conclusion of what happens with this. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more reactions just like this one, be sure to check out this video right here. Thank you to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members.